We're looking at live pictures from inside the hearing room of the Senate Intelligence Committee, where the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, will soon testify. We'll have live coverage of that. That should be important, significant, and potentially historic. Meanwhile, other important news we're following. Only hours ago, North Korea released an American college student after more than a year in prison. Otto Warmbier was serving a sentence of 15 years hard labor. But the news is tempered by a statement from Warmbier's parents, and I'll read it to you now. Otto has left North Korea. He's on a medevac flight on his way home. Sadly, he is in a coma, and we have been told he has been in that condition since March of 2016. The statement continues. We learned of this only 1 week ago. We want the world to know how we and our son have been brutalized and terrorized by the pariah regime in North Korea. We are so grateful that he will finally be with people who love him. End quote. For more on this, our CNN international correspondent, Will Ripley, he's in North Korea's capital of Pyongyang right now. Will, tell us what you've learned.
Wolf, the case of Otto Warmbier has been tragic from the beginning. He came here to North Korea as part of a tour group, a group of young people who wanted to celebrate New Year's Eve in the North Korean capital, do some sightseeing, and then go home. But on New Year's Eve, North Korean officials say Otto Warmbier wandered into a restricted area of the Yongakdo Hotel and tried to take a political sign off the wall, leaving it on the floor and going back to his room. But that crime was enough for North Korean officials to arrest Warmbier at the airport and charge him with hostile acts against the regime and sentence him to 15 years of hard labor, alleging, among other things, that he was in collusion with the CIA for this act of taking the banner off the wall. His parents have had no contact with him for more than a year. He's been in custody for a year and a half. His parents thought zero contact was because of wartime law restricting communication between American detainees and their families. They were not even able to pass letters back and forth. But just within the last week, Fred and Cindy Warmbier, his parents in Cincinnati, Ohio, learned that their son would not have been able to write a letter back to them because he has been in a coma for more than a year, since March of 2016, shortly after his trial and conviction, which is the last time that we saw him in public. Every time CNN comes into Pyongyang, we have asked to speak with Otto to find out how he's doing, and our requests for information have gone unanswered. But now his parents are telling us that he contracted a serious case of botulism last March. He became very ill and was given a sleeping pill by North Korean doctors, and he never woke up. And now his family says he is being medevaced back to the United States, where he will land in Cincinnati unconscious, but nonetheless surrounded by people who love him. Wolf?
All right, Will, thank you. Will Ripley reporting for us from Pyongyang in North Korea. Let's talk about this latest very dramatic development out of North Korea. I'm joined by CNN military and diplomatic analyst John Kirby. He's a retired U.S. Navy admiral, served as spokesman for the Pentagon and the State Department. What's your take on this dramatic development?
Well, first of all, I think kudos to the administration for working this so hard. It looks like everything we're learning now in the last couple of hours from sources around the State Department, people that are close to it, is that this was worked very, very hard at very top levels inside the administration. So I think good credit is due them for working this. And this is difficult to do. Don't forget, we still have 3 Americans that are being detained by...
3 other Americans.
Yeah, 3 other Americans that are still being detained by the North Korean regime. It's difficult to get people out of there. So this is a great development for the family. It's very, very sad and distressing, obviously, that he's in this physical state. But at least he will be able to get home and get the medical care that he deserves.
Is it a coincidence, or is there some connection that the former NBA star Dennis Rodman all of a sudden yesterday shows up in Beijing, makes a connecting flight to Pyongyang? He's in Pyongyang right now for another meeting, presumably, with Kim Jong-un.
The National Security Council, on the record, is saying that that he had nothing to do with this. State Department sources are saying the same thing. Some colleagues I've talked to at the State Department also confirm that Rodman had nothing to do with this. I think he's there on some sort of sports diplomacy tour. So I take them at their word. I think it is an unusual coincidence, no question about it, but I don't think he had anything to do with this.
The only suspicion I have is that maybe from the U.S. standpoint he had nothing to do with this, but the fact that the North Koreans knew they were about to release this university University of Virginia student. They wanted to have something there. Usually when they release an American, usually another American, whether a former president, a former Secretary of State, a former UN ambassador, shows up. And apparently no one might have been willing to show up except maybe Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, there's no question that the Pyongyang regime, they like the legitimacy that comes from prominent Americans visiting and coming to talk to them about whatever the issue is. And I can't, who knows what's in Kim Jong-un's mind, whether or not he saw that this is a propitious time to do that. But everything that we're learning in the last couple hours tells us that this has been worked very, very hard on its own, in isolation of Rodman, by top levels of the State Department. And I think, honestly, that's what got Otto Warmbier out.
Well, let's hope he's going to be okay once he arrives back in the United States. Let's hope those 3 other Americans are released soon.
And we should not forget that there are 3 other Americans there. This is a tactic the regime continues to pull, and they try to play for legitimacy and for favor out of that. We shouldn't let them off the hook for that.
And let's see what Dennis Rodman, if he does anything while he's there, maybe they'll give him an opportunity to meet with these 3 other Americans. Maybe he'll be able to, who knows, bring 1 or 2 or all 3 of them home. I think would be an encouraging development.
Absolutely. Any effort to get these other Americans out would be a good thing.
All right, John Kirby, thanks very much.